Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here this afternoon, and to your staff. So as I understand this, DPH, as we speak, does not have the authority to oversee and regulate CVH.
No, we don't.
Correct. So you get...
As a license,
Right.
through CMS, but it's CMS, not us.
Right. So for licensing, no. But when CMS requests you to go in as the need happens, that's when you go in and you give this report.
Yes, now only CVH, not Whiting.
Right.
We
I'll come to
cannot
that.
go in Whiting.
I'll
Okay.
come to that. So when you generate this report, when you go to CVH and give it to CMS, that's where your responsibility is over in creating the report and giving it to CMS.
Our responsibilities aren't over. We're just doing a handoff to the people who will now review the report, make sure they concur with our findings, that we didn't veer off of process or anything like that, and then CMS actually issues that report to the hospital. So they are, in some ways, Dr. Srinivasan, it's kind of like a boss. They're our boss, but they've trained us, they mentor us, they survey with us on site to make sure we're doing the job the way they've trained us. So it is often not a difficult process. That is generally not fraught with a lot of, oh, we have to discuss this, or we have to fix it, things like that.
No, I get that.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. So what I meant was that once you do the survey at the request of CMS, generate the report, and then give it to CMS, then the responsibility of DPH is over unless they come back to you and say, we need a full
Yes,
report.
yes.
So you don't go to CVH.
I don't go by myself, that's
Right.
on my own authority. They would say, go back now and do the revisit,
Right.
or go back now and do a full survey. You are correct, I would not go on my own.
No, I was not talking about the survey, but whatever recommendations you make, or whatever you found that was not to what it should be, those changes are instituted by CMS and
No.
not by DPH.
No, the changes are the plan of correction instituted by the hospital. If CMS accepts their plan, then their continued oversight is what will enforce that plan. And then they'll send us back to make sure DEMAS did what they said. But CMS doesn't prescribe how DEMAS will fix those items. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
And now, Commissioner, you talked about Whiting no longer being a part of the equation. So when CMS goes in and requests you to do a visit or an audit or whatever we call that, it is to CVH but not to the Whiting part of CVH. So what is now? When did that now happen?
That now happened when we last visiting August or July.
As
Whiting.
of April 1,
Right.
they were voluntarily terminated, but September.
September was our last visit. Okay. September was our last visit to Whiting.
Thank you. So you talked about voluntary, they were suspended. So who did the voluntary part? CVH did that or CMS did that?
No, DEMAS asked CMS to decertify the beds. I believe it was at the end of August, they wrote to CMS and asked them to decertify those beds back to April 1st, because it was realized that at Whiting, because you can't do a hospital discharge plan like you do from Hartford Hospital, Whiting didn't meet those conditions of participation for CMS to be a hospital. So that's why DEMAS then appreciated what CMS was saying and said, all right, then we're going to decertify those beds, and they chose the date of April 1st.
So if the beds at Whiting are decertified, so other than DEMAS looking at Whiting, there is no other pair of eyes because CMS is no longer involved in the Whiting part of CVH.
There are no eyes at DPH. There certainly are eyes, the Office of Protection and Advocacy, DEMAS's own internal structures,
Department of Justice.
and the accrediting body, Joint Commission.
Thank you. And my final question is, prior to July, you talked about this year when you went there and gave the report. In previous years, let's go back maybe 5 years, 10 years, I'm sure CMS must have requested you to go in and do a similar on-site visit, audit, whatever we call that. Were those findings at that point in time, let's take your last visit 5 years ago, if you can just go back to a similar report in a broad picture, did you find similar things to what you found now, or has the culture suddenly become very different?
And Barbara may want to jump into this too. Throughout that period, say 5 years, we certainly, at the request of CMS, would go in and do a variety of visits. They weren't always complaint-driven or whistleblower-driven. There is a real advantage to surveyors if you have been sort of directed to a hot spot of problem. But if we go in to do a general audit in a building that large with 500 patients, you sample records, you sample your observations, all of those. We made observations of some of these things on occasion through those years, and they never, as Barbara had mentioned before, had that same manner and degree that we found this past July in terms of the abuse and neglect allegations. We found some architectural things that were not good for people who could hang themselves, and we cited them. And those would be fixed. And we found some treatment planning issues, and those would then be addressed. But because this just happened to be so focused, and there were videotapes, it was a little different kind of investigation, Representative. So I hope that sort of is clear.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely did. And you're very articulate and explain things very well to all of us, and we're very appreciative of that. So this culture of abuse and culture of cruelty, which we are so concerned about, and that's why we are all here today, in your past observations, if I'm hearing you, and gleaning from that, you did not feel what you're seeing now is what you've seen consistently for 5 years or a decade going back in time?
So, I think that we all have a lack of evil imagination that this level of abuse could happen anyway. So we can only speak about the times that we were present at the hospital and what we have witnessed or being able to have proof of. I don't know if I would qualify a culture of abuse. Certainly, I don't have the elements to make an editorial about the entire institution, and I'm pretty sure the 37 individuals that has been implicated in this are not a reflection of the hundreds of workers that they have there. But the reality is that we were appalled and sickened to see the level of mistreatment and abuse that happened, and to the fact that it was taped and preserved so that we can easily have access to that information.
I might just interject one moment, Representative. As has been mentioned previously, we are running over, and for the benefit of all the members of the public who have assembled here for the 1 o'clock public hearing, we ask for your patience. We should be concluding the morning sections relatively soon, and thank you for your patience. Please continue, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my final question, similar to, in the same vein as Representative Steinberg, for if we feel that licensing and oversight of the entire CVH facility has to be in the hands of DPH, like all other hospitals, the acute care hospitals. It has to go through statute. Is that the way that it has to be done?
Yes.
Thank you.